Welcome back to another video from the Craft Mansion. Today I'll be showing you how to make the sword of my favorite Game of Thrones character, Longclaw. So this is the sword of Jon Snow, and in this tutorial I will show you how I made this sword. It is mainly made from foam board, it has some foam and some clay at the end, and through this tutorial I will guide you through the steps I took to make this sword. Of course I made the template for the whole sword, and if you want it you can contact me on my social media and I can send it to you. Tonight the first episode of the last season airs, and let's hope that by the end of the season the owner of this sword is still alive. I wish I had an intro that's as cool as the one from Game of Thrones, but for now this one will have to do. First, start by cutting off the various pieces of the template and then assembling them together. Then trace the whole sword on the foam board twice and this piece 2 more times. Cut the foam board and also cut the fuller from the rest of the blade. Once you have the fuller template, flip one side of the sword, so now it's on the inside, and then trace the fuller. Once the fuller is traced, then measure a 7mm slot on each side of the fuller, starting from about here all the way to the end. And now to hollow out these grooves, first cut the first layer of paper and then cut lines that are slightly slanted like this. Then you can peel off the foam, so you end up with grooves on the inside of the sword. Then do the same process on this line, but with grooves of about 3 to 4mm thickness. For the next step you're going to need 2 wooden dowels that are as long as the groove we just did, and then at the end make a hole on each dowel. Make the hole in line with the smaller groove, so now we can pass a wire through the holes. This way even the handguard is strong enough with a wire. And now pour white glue into the grooves so we can attach the dowels to the sword. Then once the dowel is dry, pour more glue onto the sword, grab the other piece, so as you can see there are the other grooves on the other one, and stick them together. The other pieces are 1 and 2. And next mark the lines from the template. So I have the first one here, and this is the second one. Start rounding up this piece over here and separating it from the rest of the sword. It should be something like this. Then do the same to this piece. For the handguard, first peel off the first layer of paper. And then start flattening out the sides. Once the guard is flattened out at the end, start rounding out this bit until it's a circle like this one. Basically the first part of the sword is done, so now we need to carve the blade. First mark the fuller and bevel out the blade. So that method wasn't really working out for me, so I'm taking off the first layer of paper. Do this by first cutting the paper slightly and then peeling off the top layer of paper. And then you can bevel afterwards, so it would be easier to just cut the foam. To hollow out the fuller, first remove the first layer of paper. Then use sandpaper to chip out the middle of the fuller. I'm using a grit size of 60. So start working at the fuller and hollowing it out. Once you reach the desired shape, start smoothing out the curves you just did. So use smaller grits, this one's 100, and go over the fuller. Then use finer sandpaper to smooth out the fuller as one whole thing. At the end there should be this shape, and once the whole thing is done, you can start sealing it up with Mod Podge. This step is optional, but before painting I like to seal the whole thing up. Once the Mod Podge dries, then go over with a very fine sandpaper to remove the harshness. Then reapply some more Mod Podge and do this for several times. I gave the sword a total of 3 layers of Mod Podge. Then I painted it white. So now it's time to spray paint it with silver. The guard is slightly darker, so I added some black paint to some silver paint. To make the handle, I'm starting off by marking the full lines. Using a mini drill, I'm taking off all the excess foam and paper. The final handle should look like this. It doesn't need to be that smooth, but we need to cover it up with Mod Podge. Now to cover up the handle, first grab a piece of foam that's slightly bigger than the handle. It needs to be black foam. Crumple up a piece of foil, and then I end down the foil. Then take off the foil to reveal the textured foam. The texture should be something like this, and the foam should be long enough for the handle. Cut the edges straight, and now start gluing the foam to the sword. Since I'm using super glue, it is very important to put a layer of Mod Podge before I attach the foam, as the super glue eats the foam of the foam board away. When you come to the end, flip the foam and measure where it meets the other end, and then cut off the excess foam. To seal the ends at the back of the handle, just apply some Mod Podge. Now cut the extra foam at the end of the sword. The pommel starts from somewhere about here, so I'm just going to make a line. And now grab a piece of foil so we can start shaping the pommel. To do the actual details for the pommel, I'm going to use clay. To prevent the clay from drying while working on it, I'm going to use some water, and now I'm going to do a time lapse, since this whole thing is a process. This is the final general shape of the pommel. Now I will wait 24 hours for the clay to dry, and then I can continue with the process. Once you're happy with the design, seal it up with Mod Podge. Now paint the pommel with a cream color, and color the base of the eyes with some black marker. To fill in the eyes, I'm going to use a 3D pen with transparent filament. To color in the eye and to also make it transparent, I mixed Mod Podge with some red food coloring to make red Mod Podge. Then grab a small brush and start coloring in the eye. The sword is nearly done. All that's left is to paint the grooves with watered down black paint. After you finish the black painting, you can add another layer of Mod Podge if you want, so the colors are all sealed. And finally, Jon Snow's sword is finished. These are some details of the final product. So as you can see, there's the fuller in the middle. Then at the guard, there are the spheres at the end. the spiral of foam, and then there's the pommel of the dire wolf. I would really appreciate it if you liked, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Comment down below your favorite moment from the Game of Thrones series. I have another Game of Thrones crowd video on my channel, which is this one, and I also have another sword tutorial, which is right over here. Of course, it's even better to subscribe, since I will be putting more videos in the future. Until then, I'll see you guys next time.